Hello my lovelies, so this is Lizzie from Love From Lizi, and today I'm bringing you the January 2019 10 cards 1 kit part 1 video. I've had to split this into 2 videos I'm afraid this month because what with Christmas and with my little man, I've actually really been enjoying some time off with him, and crafting, fitting around late nights and everything else has just unfortunately not been as easy as I'd hoped. But anyhow, I've jumped into card 1 there, and I've just shown you how I make all of my card bases, which is I split the piece of cardstock lengthways and then score it in half at 5.5 inches to make a top fold card. And here I've taken a second piece of white card, also from the kit, and I've just die cut a large stitched banner from it, which is just from my stash. And here I'm taking the cloud die that makes up part of the kit, and I'm also measuring loosely, as it were, with one of the stamps where I want it to sit, and then I've run that through my big shot. And here I've placed the banner into my Misty, excuse my head, but I wanted to make sure that my stamp was fully lined up to make sure that those little hearts dropped down at the right spot. The joy of see-through stamps, of photopolymer stamps, is that you can actually see where it's going to hit. So I've used my anti-static powder tool on the banner because I know that I'm going to heat emboss, and then I use my Versamark and make sure it's all still nice and lined up, and I give it a good double stamp just because it's a brand new stamp and I like things to be nice and juicy for the embossing powder to stick to. And here I'm using Silver Dollar embossing powder, which is Love From Lizi embossing powder, and I'm heating it up. I do make sure that I heat both the back and the front, and that my heat gun is nice and hot before I start to heat, just to make sure that it doesn't warp the cardstock too much. And as you may have noticed by this card, this kit is actually really very bright and colourful, so I wanted to kick off the kit doing something that wasn't really in line with the colour scheme. I do really enjoy sort of pushing the boundary, as it were, to try to make people think about the kit in the ways that aren't as obvious. So anywho, moving on here, I've obviously die cut my cloud, and I've now taken a piece of acetate and used some glossy accents there just around the edge on the reverse side of the cloud, stuck my acetate down, and here I'm going to make a shaker card. This is how I make the gully, if you like, for the sequins to sit in. I get a piece of my Big Mama Scotch tape roll and I fold it in half, and I use my fingers along the edges to make sure that I get a nice clean edge so that there isn't any bits that stick out with sticky on for sequins to attach to. And now I'm just flipping that back over, and I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment, because usually, because I make my cards sort of as I go, I don't design them beforehand. This is the sort of thing that I forget to do once I've put some foam tape on something, or where there's other things that can stick to the embossing powder. So I was quite proud of myself on this one. But yeah, I've picked my sentiment, I lined the banner up to make sure that it was sitting in the right position, and then used my anti-static powder tool, and then I Versamarked that down. I did give a double stamp, as I think I almost always do that, if not 2 or 3 stamps, just to make sure. And then I've heat set that as well, again in the Silver Dollar, just to keep some nice continuity running through. And then now at this point I'm now putting the foam tape behind. Now, and I find if you take the foam tape off from both the front and the back, you can really manipulate the foam to go around the edges nice and tight. And here I just realised that my foam tape was a little bit wide for the gap that I'd left, so I just trimmed it before I stuck it down to make sure it would fit. Now unfortunately my camera did conk out and I didn't realise, but all I did was lay some sequins down on the front of my card base, and here you're seeing another boo-boo. I managed to do the sentiment okay, but I was so keen to make sure the sequins were all in the right place that I forgot to put foam tape on the rest of the back of that banner. But all was not lost. As you can see, I just sort of tucked some double width for scotch underneath there, and that's the card done. So it's a very simple white card there. So this is card 2, and this I wanted to enjoy both the 6x6 and 8x8 pattern papers. So what I did was I picked 2 of exactly the same, and then I decided to choose the corners to sort of make a pinwheel almost with them. And here I'm using the Nouveau Deluxe glue, which is new to me. Apparently the world and his wife uses it and it is brilliant. I can now attest to that myself. And all I did here was I picked where I wanted the point of the diamond, shall we call it? I'm not quite sure how to describe, but the point of all the papers. And I decided I wanted it in sort of the lower right hand corner, just because that's where I like to put my sentiments and things. And then on the reverse side, I drew a pencil line exactly where the cardstock runs out, as it were. And then I used my scissors to cut around the outside of it, because I do like to overcut when I'm sticking things onto the front. So here you can see I've drawn my line, and then I'm cutting a few millimetres over to create a bit of waste, which, yes, is wasteful. However, it means that once these are all sort of stuck in place, I can then go around and trim away all the excess, and all the edges are perfect, and I can just focus on making sure that the inside of the card is great rather than making sure that the edges all line up. So these sort of all just fit into place a bit like a jigsaw. And as you can see, I'm using opposing corners to make sure that all the lines direct into the card. I could have done this so that it looked like a box, so that the squares were growing out if I'd have used the opposing corners. But this was the look I was going for. So, yeah, there was my fourth and final piece. I'm just giving this all a good firm press down. And then at this point, I'm sort of like encouraging everything into the middle just to make sure all those lines are perfect. And here I'm trying to use my left-handed scissors again, which was a complete fail. So I did resort to my regular ones. I will get there. I will learn. And here I'm just using the yellow peel-offs that came in the kit. This is the middle width peel off, just to go along those seams. So if you do case this card and you don't manage to get everything to sort of sit perfectly, maybe you use double-sided tape or it moves while it's drying, peel-offs hide a multitude of sins. So yeah, they're great for this. And then here, this is I'm sorry that I'm off screen, but what you would have seen had I have been on screen was me cutting around the sticker that I wanted to use. So you can see here I've got the outside piece, because what I want to do is mount this up onto the matte gold cardstock that comes in the kit. But personally, I'm not great at cutting ovals, so I've stuck this on the reverse side of the gold, and then I'm drawing with a pencil line around the outside of where the sticker is cut from that sheet. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm just snipping that out with my scissors, looking from the reverse side, because also with the gold, you can't put any pencil on the front without it marking it. So this way, I'm going in with my scissors and just trimming around the backing sheet that sits behind the sticker, and then I use my tweezers to sort of hold it over to make sure it's got a nice border, and I'm happy with how it looks. So I remove the backer and stick that down, and then any sort of little bits that I thought were just a little bit extra, I just shimmied those off there, and that will be sitting in the middle of the point. And I've just got some of the really skinny white ribbon with the gold edging, and I'm using a mini glue dot here just to hold it down. They're really simple as long as you get them in the right spot, which I didn't in this one, so I just used my tweezers and my finger and I just sort of like flipped it over and it was fine. And then I've attached that right across the cross in the middle of the card there, and I use some Scotch foam adhesive, and I leave sort of a gap in the middle so that the ribbon doesn't get squashed or it doesn't make it bulky in the middle of the topper. And then here I tie a bow, and I didn't actually edit any of this out. This is sort of, it's not quite real time because this is sped up, but this is how I tie bows with these ribbons, and it's why I like to include these skinny little ribbons in the kit, because they are so easy to make bows with. I am no professional at all. But here we go. So I use a little glue dot on the back of the bow and just pop that on the bottom. So it's a super simple, nice quick card, but good to have on hand because it fits many occasions. Okay, card 3. Now card 3 and card 5, if I'd have actually switched them on their heads and done card 5 first, it would have been more efficient with my blue paper, but there is loads in the kit, so I wasn't too worried about it. However, anywho, I've got my card base here and I've popped it into my Misty. I've put some anti-static powder down, and I'm using the longer sentiment from the stamp set, which is life isn't about waiting for a storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain, which I think is lovely. and I think it's a really good uplifting card for someone that might be having a bit of a tough time, but you don't necessarily want to mention exactly what it is about their time that's tough. So I think this is just a good positivity card. So I'm heat embossing this, and I'm using Love From Lizi Platinum Tiara embossing powder on this one. This isn't included in the kit, but of course it is in my store. And then I die cut that little blue cloud from the 8x8 blue paper. There isn't much difference other than the pattern is that much tighter on the 6x6. And here I've just glued that down with the Deluxe Nouveau glue, and here you can see this is how I put sequins down. I just essentially put loads of blobs down and then stick sequins in. There isn't really any rhyme or reason. I try not to be too regular with them. And this is a sequin picking tool which I was given at Junkie Fest. I won a little giveaway there, which was quite nice because I don't often enter giveaways, and yeah, so I popped those on and that was really easy to use, and I'm looking to try to get those into my store, but until that point that's great, and if you can get one then go ahead. I'm on to card 5 now. Again, I'm chattering on. It has just gone past midnight. It is actually New Year's Day now here. It's 1:45 in the morning, but this is going to be the only time that I will have some peace and quiet from my little man because he doesn't go back to school for another week. So I thought I'd try to get this done now for you. But here I've just taken another of the white card bases that I've made from my kit, and I've used some of the glue to attach down the glittered embellishment Happy Birthday. And here I'm using the Nouveau drops, which are gorgeous, and I'm kind of going a bit mad and just dotting it around. I'm trying to make sure that the dots are more condensed near Happy Birthday and spread out more towards the edge. I have done a card similar to this with Nouveau drops, but it was about 2 years ago, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be forgiven for recycling. It was my own design at the time, which I hope makes it a little bit better, and I have mixed it up a little bit. But yes, and the idea behind this card was that I wanted to make sure that I made a masculine card. So I wanted to do a completely white card and I wanted to do a masculine card. They were my 2 personal challenges. So if anybody else wants to jump in on that challenge, I'll be very interested to see what it is that you're making. Anywho, I've picked up the red gems that came in the kit, and my gosh, did they take ages to snip and get into those little bags. So I'm making sure I'm making the most out of these guys, and I'm being very careful because I didn't wait for the Nouveau drops to dry. I wanted to start the card and make it, and this card actually, to be perfectly honest, only took about 15 minutes to make. It was really nice and quick, and again, really good generic card. And if you changed up the colours, then you know you can obviously fit it to the person that's receiving it a bit more. But it's super simple, but effective, and I'm very happy with this card. And I'm sure one of the males in my family will be very grateful for it when it comes to their birthday, and I've forgotten to make them a card. So yes, there's my little happy birthday with the gems, and on to the final card of this video. And here you can see I'm using the 8x8 paper with that cloud die cut from it. And as I say, if I'd have been more efficient and had this idea sooner, it would have worked out better. But there we are. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting a piece of the 8x8 paper to sit as a card panel. So it's not the same size as the card front. I have cut it at 4 inches by 5 1/4. I'm trying to work with inches here and get a bit better with it because it is not natural to me in the least. But I wanted to use the glitter stickers because as part of the die set there is a silver lining, and I was thinking I'll use that, but then I was thinking I keep using my cloud die and I'm not using any of my other products, so I thought for this card I would use the letters. And this is how I use alphabet letters. I use my ruler or something else. The reason that I like the T-square ruler is it sits slightly up from my desk, so if I stick it on the ruler it doesn't also automatically stick to what's underneath it. But I wanted to spell out every cloud has a silver lining. Now some of the so for example you can see there all of the A's are all red and all of the B's are also red, and I tried to manipulate it so that there weren't 2 colours sat next to each other. Now there were a couple of instances where that did happen, but like this for example has ASA all red, and then the S for silver also red, So I made sure that when I laid them out on the card, they split up a bit, and I don't think it's that noticeable. It's supposed to be random, so I'm working with it. But yeah, so I've left this all in just to show you that I wanted to measure it all out so that I could sort of move my ruler over the front of my card panel as well, just to make sure that everything would fit and how everything would work out. So I'm just putting those last few down there. And these also, because these letters are really nice and regular, it would work if you did like a really jaunty one. I think, like really jaunty lay. I've done a very straight and organised one. But anyway, this is the off card of the cloud from my first card. So I'm just sort of taping that in place to make sure that things are going to fit the way that I want them to. And here I'm just sort of fussing around with the letters to make sure that they're actually all nice and lined up. And then I hold the ruler over where I want them to sit. And then I just push the top parts down and it transfers the letters. Because the top part sticks to the paper, and you can just encourage the ruler out. So they're just fussing around a little bit, pushing them down and then moving the ruler away. And sometimes they jog a little bit, but it is just a case of readjusting with the tweezers, then giving them a good firm press. Now at this point I was happy with where the cloud was going to sit, so I got my die out and then I just die cut my little cloud. That went through the big shot. And what also helped actually with these stickers was going through the die cutting machine. It really stuck them down well. So it was a very good. Oh, I messed that bit up a bit, but yeah, best laid plans. But yes, so as you can see, it's just. I mean, you can draw pencil lines on, but then I find you can never quite rub them out once the stickers are put on there. So I did run it through the die cutting machine again. Just between my plates, just to make sure those bottom stickers were stuck down nicely as well. And this is my card base, and I've just taped that at a bit of a jaunty angle on my craft mat. I don't think I can call it a mat. My craft plate. What do we call this, guys? I'm a bit at a loss. Anyhow, I've taken the middle width holographic peel off, and I'm just running those at a 1/4 inch interval using the lines of my grid mat to make sure it's in the right place. And then I'm sort of holding the top piece over the top to make sure that that cloud is all full up of silver linings. And then I simply lift the top. I taped the back so that obviously the top would still be able to be moved around a bit, and I'd be able to stick the peel-offs all the way to the edge. And then what I'm doing is I'm being a bit mean with my peel-offs. I'm using the waste bit that I cut away at the bottom, and then just sort of putting little lips at the 1/4 inch marks all the way around the edge of the card, so that when the card front is on, it gives the illusion of the peel-offs running the whole way behind. And you can be a little bit more slapdash and not quite so mean with them as me, and just let them run the whole way behind. But if you can't see them, I'd rather save them. So I've trimmed off all the edges, and now I'm just popping some foam tape up behind that panel, removing the backer and then popping it down in place. And that is the end of that card. Now I will do a full listing of all the products that I've used at the end of part 2. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please let me know which of the cards is your favourite, and if there's anything specific you would like to see in my next video, pop it in the comments, and if I haven't made it already, I will do. And yeah, thanks very much. Until next time, bye.